Hey guys, Vazzy back here, and in today's video we're going to be doing another episode of comparing players from one NHL game to another. Today's video is going to be covering comparing players from NHL 22 to NHL 25. So this concept is pretty self-explanatory, but if you have not seen one of these episodes that I've done before, we take a look at 4 different players in various NHL games. We take a look at overall, potential, and their career trajectory, and we see how it matches up to where they were rated in NHL 22 and see if they get to the heights or the lows of where they are in NHL 25. So with that being said, let's go take a look at our first player in today's video. And that first player is Evan Bouchard, who in NHL 22 was rated 79 overall with medium top 4 potential. Was a pretty good prospect for the Oilers at a time. This, I believe, was his first full year in the NHL. Former 10th overall pick back in 2018. I think we all know where Evan Bouchard ended up, going to back-to-back Stanley Cup finals with the Edmonton Oilers, being the big point scorer on the blue line for them. 88 overall with high top 4 potential here in NHL 25. I'm actually surprised EA doesn't have him at medium elite, but not the biggest issue. He still performs extremely well in franchise mode. So let's go back to NHL 22. Let me simulate to the start of the 2025-26 NHL season, and let's see where Evan Bouchard ends up in that game. Simulating ahead to the start of the 2025-26 NHL season, Evan Bouchard did end up getting some growth, although it was not enough to match his high of NHL 25. Still has his medium top 4 potential, going up to 83 overall. So still 5 points lower than he would get in current day games, but it is not too bad. Still a very solid 3rd or 4th defenseman. Looking at his individual stats, looks like the shot's pretty good. Defense is only 3.5 stars, physical same thing. It's more or less kind of what you would expect from an offensive defenseman with stronger ties to those stats. Looking at the point scoring here, his first year in the simulation, 79 games, 25 points, 6 of those being goals. Looks like that was actually his career high to this point, which is pretty far off from what you get to in real life, obviously. In the 2022-23 season, played in 75 games, put up 22 points, was a minus 13. In 23-24, played in all 82 games, put up 23 points, and then in 24-25, also played in all 82 games, only putting up 24 points. So I think it's pretty safe to say in this simulation here with Evan Bouchard, he was a very solid NHL defenseman, but he is nowhere near where he got to in current games. Next player we'll be looking at here today is Juuso Valimaki, a bit of an interesting one. 80 overall, that's fine for a defenseman at 22, but he had high top 4 potential. I know he was a top Flames prospect at one point, but I do not remember the high top 4. I just assumed it was medium top 4. But looking at all his individual stats to start out this game, looks like honestly a pretty well-rounded two-way defenseman. Moving over to NHL 25, and Valimaki has obviously since moved on from the Calgary Flames, now on the Tucson Roadrunners, played with Utah, played with Arizona, and obviously Calgary. 81 overall with a low top 4 potential. A guy that has had a pretty decent career up until this point, being more or less a bottom pairing defenseman, I think is probably pretty safe to say, and stats are actually pretty similar to where they were back in NHL 22. So let me go simulate ahead a few years, and we'll see what heights Valimaki reaches in the sim. Okay, so after simming those 4 seasons, you'll see that Valimaki really did pan out here. Still has his high top 4 potential, has grown to an 86 overall, that's again a +5 from where he was in NHL 25. At age 26, still has another year potential to grow. Looking at all his stats, once again, the skating actually looks pretty good. Defense is 4-star, physical 4-star, and yeah, more or less just kind of what you would expect. No real weaknesses, no real super strengths, just a good solid defenseman. Looking at all his individual stats from these seasons, the first year here in the simulation, playing in 62 games, put up 4 goals, 16 assists for 20 points. In 22-23, saw a really nice improvement. Ended up getting 7 goals and 33 points. That is a nice improvement over his, I guess, quote-unquote rookie season here in the sim. 23-24 did take a slight decline, at least when it comes to points, but still very solid. and then in 24-25, this most recent season, put up 40 points, 8 of those being goals, and set a new career high for himself. So I think it's safe to say that the game definitely had a little bit more of a brighter future for Juuso Valimaki, although he has still had a pretty solid career up until this point. The next player we'll be looking at here today is very interesting, that being Juraj Slafkovsky. In NHL 22, he was rated 65 overall with low top 6 potential. This was the year that he was drafted first overall by the Montreal Canadiens. So obviously at this point in the year, whenever EA ended up releasing this roster, he was definitely not slated to be a first rounder. Interesting to note, he was a two-way forward here rather than a power forward. Then moving over to NHL 25, again, the first overall pick of the Montreal Canadiens here in 2022, 85 overall with medium elite potential, does have his status as a power forward back, and is one of the bright spots in the young core for the Montreal Canadiens. So let's go simulate up ahead in NHL 22 and see if he can reach the same heights. So after simulating to current day, you'll see that Slafkovsky actually was drafted by the Winnipeg Jets in this simulation. Ended up growing slightly, still has his low top 6 potential, and is now 73 overall at 21 years of age. So definitely quite different from what happened in real life. I think a lot of us here would have expected that there with the low top 6 potential, and how that doesn't always develop players the greatest. Looking at his stats here as a two-way forward, and again, it's pretty well spread out. The senses aren't great at only 2 stars, but outside of that, everything looks pretty even, what you would expect from a two-way. Looking at the individual stats here, first year in Liga, his draft year, 27 games played, only put up 5 points. It is tough for a younger player in the men's league, so it is somewhat expected. In 22-23, first year in the AHL, he did struggle, only putting up 13 points in 81 games. The good news for him, the next year he did rebound, putting up 34 points in 69 games, before unfortunately regressing in that last year, playing 78 games and only putting up 23 points for the Moose. So definitely a miss here from EA Sports. I don't think it's controversial at all to say that Slafkovsky had a much better NHL career than what they gave him here. The last player in today's video is going to be Alex Turcotte of the LA Kings. Obviously, former top prospect of them, was the 5th overall pick back in 2019, 78 overall in-game with medium elite potential. I'm pretty sure up to this point, this was his first appearance in an EA Sports NHL game. And then moving over to NHL 25, Turcotte here has a rating of 80 overall with medium top 6 potential. Still is a younger player, only 23 years of age, and this was, I guess you can kind of say, his breakout year in real life, finally showing what he could do at the NHL level. So now let's go simulate ahead one more time in NHL 22 and see what happens with Turcotte's career. So the final simulation is done and we have some very interesting results. So Turcotte still has his medium elite potential, but did reach 80 overall exactly. That is the exact same rating that we saw in NHL 25. Maybe, just maybe, EA was on to something here. Let's go take a look at some of these stats and see how Turcotte was looking over the course of the sim. So as a two-way forward here, we've looked at a lot of two-way forwards, a lot of two-way defensemen. They do kind of match up where they're supposed to, just kind of being generally alright at everything. Looking at the individual point scoring here. First year in the AHL, played in 78 games, putting up 54 points. Phenomenal first year there in the A. 22-23, played in 82 games, putting up 28 points, followed by another 82 game season at 24, and then 20 points. So I'm guessing here that, yeah, it comes down to time on ice. With the medium elite potential, I'm guessing he didn't grow here because he really wasn't being given a chance on this LA Kings team. So it is unfortunate to see. You would expect with medium elite potential that he would at least be like an 85, 86 at this point, but did not work out and is exactly where he is at in NHL 25. But I think that is going to do it for today's video, comparing players from NHL 22 to NHL 25. Always fun looking back at some of these games, even just from a few years ago, see where players are rated, and see who was kind of spiked, and see who was kind of busted over the course of that time. But that will do it for today's video. I'll see you all in the next one.